Come with me to listen to this tale of two sisters where you think you know what's happening for the entire movie, but then you get to see what's inside the wardrobe. Welcome back to 31 Days of Halloween. Today we are going to be talking about one of my last foreign films. I think I have this and then two more. A Tale of Two Sisters. So this is another Korean film that has been highly recommended, and I believe that it also has some ties to the director from I Saw the Devil. I think it may be the same director or writer or something like that. Um, but this movie was, I mean, the South Korean film kind of rarely lets me down. It has yet to let me down, knock on wood. So this movie is about two sisters who return home after some sort of seemingly traumatic event, because the movie opens with one of the sisters in like a psychiatric facility, and she's talking to a doctor, and the doctor's like, do you remember what happened? Do you remember what happened? Can you tell me what happened on that day? So then we flash back to the two sisters arriving at their house, and like it seems kind of like fun and idyllic and nice, and they're having a nice time with each other, and then they go into the house and their stepmother's there, and it seems really scary for them that she's there. Like they don't want to be near her. She goes to touch one of the other daughters, Soo Yun, and like she kind of backs up and is like really scared. And then you have, I'm gonna assume it's the older daughter, Soo Mi. She just kind of acts in like the older sister role here, and she's very protective of Soo Yun. And as they're in this house, there's a lot of animosity between them and the stepmother, and the father is kind of like in the background, but he also like gives you clues to what's going on, because there's a lot of weird stuff going on in this house, and you're really not sure what's going on. Most of this movie, I was sitting there saying, is this real? Is this not real? I don't know what to believe. I don't know what not to believe. Who's the unreliable character here? Are they all unreliable characters? So this movie keeps you going the entire movie. It's almost a 2-hour movie. It's 115 minutes. And you are kept guessing for pretty much the entirety of that. And there are a couple of really good jump scares. There was one of them where I sat there and I was like, and I said out loud, you know such and such is going to happen here. And then it happened and I still jumped and got scared. And I think that lends credence to the fact that this movie is really tense and it's scary, and it keeps you on the edge of your seat because you're on top of trying to figure out what's happening. You're also trying to figure out what is this creepy presence kind of haunting this house. There really is no superfluous dialogue or activity. Kind of like my complaint with Cairo, the Japanese version of Pulse, where there was a lot of stuff that happened that you could have fast forwarded through, including dialogue, and you wouldn't have missed anything in the movie. Here, everything happens for a reason and with a purpose. And once you figure out what the ending is, or once you get to the ending and you figure out, oh my god, like this is what happened, you can go back and see all the little things that happened that kind of tell you what's going on and kind of how this movie is going to end. And the movie does that really, really well. It keeps you guessing, and you just, it's a great movie. It's very enjoyable. It has really good lighting. I don't think there's too many special effects. I think it's all really like just practical effects and playing on your psyche and stuff. And you know, your kind of typical Korean horror to a certain extent. It's just this movie was done with such a good story that you're left kind of just completely blown away by the end of it. So I gave this movie a 7, and part of it is because I had sort of guessed what was going to happen at the beginning. Again, the movie did make me question my decisions. So I think it's really good in that because, once you watch enough horror movies or movies in general, you start to pick up on certain things and you start to make guesses and you can kind of start to figure things out. You don't follow the red herrings anymore. Um, so even though I did kind of guess what was happening, I did enjoy that the movie kept making me second guess those things. My friend gave it a 6. He felt it was a little slow. My score is more in line with the IMDb rating, which gave it a 7.2. And then on Rotten Tomatoes, it got like an 83, or an 85 and an 83 for critics and general audience, respectively. So they liked it more than I did, I guess you could say, because my 7 would be like in the 70s. And I get it, because like I said, the movie is tense, it's creepy, it's got a great ending. I guess I just didn't like it as much because I wasn't as surprised about what happened because I sort of guessed it. And I'm not going to talk about that yet because that's going to be in the spoiler section. I do recommend this movie. It's not terribly gory. It's more of a psychological thriller or a psychological horror than it is like a gory horror. But I do recommend it. You should definitely watch this movie. So if you have not seen it and you do want to watch it, now is your time to exit because we are getting into spoilers. So at the beginning of this movie, I had 2 guesses. I said either Soo-Yun is dead and this is a ghost that Sumi is seeing and interacting with, or Soo-Yun is a split personality of Sumi, and Sumi is acting out both of these characters. And actually, oddly enough, it's kind of a combination of those two. So my first couple of hints that Soo-Yun didn't exist was when they come up to the house and the camera zooms in on the car. Only half of the car is shown. And then the father goes to the door and says, "Are you coming in?" And it was kind of weird that he seemed to only be addressing one person in the car, but then 2 get out. And Sumi and Soo-Yun are dressed in almost exactly the same colors, just kind of reversed. Like Soo-Yun, I believe, is in a red dress and Sumi has like a red overcoat. And then Soo-Yun has, I think, a blue overcoat, and Sumi has a blue dress on. And while they're doing their whole first introductory jaunt through the woods and whatever, they're sitting on a pier at one point, and their shoes are off to the side. Sumi's shoes are brand new. Soo-Yun's shoes are old and dirty, and it was just kind of weird that her shoes would be so old and Sumi's shoes are not. And that idea that Soo-Yun was dead or a split personality kind of went out the window when the stepmother character started interacting with Soo-Yun. And I'm like, well, would it be a shared delusion? Like, how does the stepmother see this person who I don't believe is real? And it was interesting because the father never interacted with Soo-Yun. And I was like, all right, well, maybe she's just like the not favorite child, or maybe she really is it. It was so interesting how they like kind of kept you guessing with that, because it turns out that the stepmother is Sumi's split personality. So Sumi believes that Soo-Yun is alive, and she's acting out both herself and the stepmother, and that's why the stepmother acknowledges Soo-Yun. And then there's other little things throughout the movie that kind of make it seem like it's Sumi who's crazy and like Soo-Yun doesn't exist. There's a couple of parts where Soo-Yun gets like her period at the same time as the stepmother, and then Sumi seems to also have hers, and it's all like these weird little connecting things that you don't necessarily think about in the movie unless you're looking for them. But then once the movie's over and you're like, oh my gosh, this is how it ended. You're like, oh, this all makes sense now. So the way that it ends is it turns out that the stepmother was the two sisters' real mother's nurse. I guess the real mother was sick. They kind of don't really explain it too much. Um, and the real mother, for whatever reason, decides to kill herself in Soo-young's wardrobe. I don't know why, as a mother, that's the avenue you would choose. Not only to like killing yourself, but then killing yourself in your daughter's wardrobe. Why? So Soo-young finds her mother in there, tries to rescue her, and the wardrobe falls on her and crushes her. And the stepmother goes to investigate the noise, finds them, and then decides not to rescue Soo-young. Even though Soo-young's still alive, you can hear her saying, help, help, she's scratching and this and that. And Soo-young is the one who turns out to be haunting the house, which we figure out, and it makes sense once we know that Soo-young is a figment of Sumi's imagination, or a projection from Sumi. So Soo-young then kills the stepmother for leaving her there after Sumi goes back to the psychiatric hospital because she has an absolute meltdown at the end of the movie, and weird things happen during that meltdown, and you're like, is this meltdown actually happening? Like, is this body really there? Who's dragging the body? What is happening? It's a wild end to the movie. It was, the first half is you're building up, and it can be a little slow at times, but then you hit that point where this movie really kicks into gear, and it just does not stop. It is just really fast from that point, and you really question what it is you think you're seeing. So that's also part of the reason why I would recommend this movie. So hopefully if you sat through those spoilers, you did see the movie, because now the movie's basically ruined for you. You can't make any guesses. But hopefully you did like it. And if you didn't, I'm sorry. I liked it. I thought it was a solid recommendation, especially Korean film. They do great horror. So thank you for watching this video. Please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Just make sure you take care of your siblings so they don't accidentally die and then go on to haunt people. Bye.